In the last video of the series, we saw how Freeboard went from near bankruptcy to raising nearly $300,000 to create the next generation of road snowboards. And since we all know that putting a large sum of money in the YouTube title gets a lot of views, today we'll see the equally perilous journey of a company known as Summerboard in trying to create an electric road snowboard. There's going to be huge capital raises, talks at Google, incredible feats of engineering, and brand wars which have lasted until today. Get your popcorn ready because we are going to go on an adventure through the history of Summerboard, the world's first electric road snowboard. So, as a lot of you know, Summerboard started under the name of LeafTech with the one goal of making an electric freeboard, so that no matter where you lived, whether flat or hilly, you could turn your local roads into snow slopes. Those of you that didn't see part 1 of the series are probably wondering how it's even possible to emulate snowboarding on roads. The idea of a freeboard was first conceived by Steen Strand at the University of Stanford, an idea which in hindsight looks quite simple, allowing you to snowboard on roads. Thanks to 2 spinning caster wheels at the base and 4 edge wheels, freeboards reproduce the flat base and 2 steel edges that you'd find on a snowboard. But despite how well built freeboards are for downhill, there was one rider who wasn't satisfied with how they worked on flat. Because the fact is, you can't really ride freeboards on flat ground. Trust me, I have tried. Freeboards are only really rideable on flat if you're doing short bits of freestyle. And so began the journey of Aaron Aders in Brooklyn trying to create an electric version of these boards. But this was no simple task because he'd have to figure out how to motorize a swivel caster. If we consider this problem today, it might not seem like such a big problem, but at the time it was widely believed that this would be impossible. In fact, the only thing resembling an electric freeboard were boosted boards, and they were just electric skateboards. But lucky for us now, this didn't stop Aaron from pursuing his goal. And in essence, inspired by the tech from boosted boards, alongside technology known as slip rings which allow you to motorize rotating circuits, they created the first LeafTech board. And watching over their early day clips, it's always funny to see the old freeboard parts. In particular, you can see the G3R hanger and the Blues wheels. But despite how impressive this technology was, the freeboard community were not very happy. Because as awesome as this technology was, freeboard weren't really being credited in a lot of these LeafTech videos. And so began the war between the Summerboard and freeboard communities, where you would find that a lot of riders would be exclusive to one or the other. And both freeboard and Summerboard are responsible for this. From the side of freeboard, it was a shame that the communities didn't accept Summerboard right away, because at the end of the day, any amount of competition in the road snowboard space was a good thing, because that way both companies would be competing to make the best products possible. While on the side of Summerboard, I think it was a mistake to try to sever ties with freeboard completely. By not recognising freeboard and the community, both Summerboard and freeboard ended up worse off, because there's no denying that someone interested in freeboarding would also be interested in Summerboarding, and vice versa. But look, those are bygone days and problems of the past, and lucky enough for everyone involved, Aaron didn't give up in the pursuit of electrifying freeboards. And the very first iteration of an electric freeboard was actually built by attaching a motor from a remote control helicopter to 2 shopping cart wheels. And with this they learnt that it was actually possible and went on to try to secure some funding. But given the lack of belief in the idea that Aaron was proposing, their only option was through crowdfunding, and so began their Kickstarter campaign, with a goal to raise $60,000. But surprisingly, the campaign actually only raised $40,000, and so LeafTech had to go back to the drawing board in order to search for more funding. With crowdfunding in mind, they ended up launching an Indiegogo campaign. The project raised $60,000, which was well above their $45,000 goal, and by the time of its inception, the board was pretty well received. And by lurking around the offices in New York, they managed to get some pretty big media outlets reviewing their product. So much so that Aaron was even able to give a talk at Google about the technology involved in the LeafTech. All of this created a strong tailwind for LeafTech to develop the second version of their board, which promised better wheels, a lighter design, and stronger parts than the previous generation. And whether you freeboard, Summerboard, or neither, you just can't argue with how much progress LeafTech had made in bringing snowboarding to flat roads. And fast forward to today, where LeafTech have rebranded as Summerboard, they haven't stopped innovating. They were the first to promote the wide centre wheels, which are now being used commonly on freeboards. And just look at the progress that they've made since the first LeafTech to the newest board, the Summerboard SBX. I mean, what? We're going from this to this, or this to this. It is so good to see the improvements over the years, and kind of crazy if you do the comparisons straight next to one another. It really does benefit everyone that they've made such impressive improvements on the board over the years. And just like the Freeboard 5X, the Summerboard SBX is a prime example of what is only possible thanks to crowdfunding. So really, there should be an advert for Indiegogo and Kickstarter, because without either of those, neither the Freeboard 5X nor the Summerboard SBX would be available to buy today. It's only thanks to the initial backers that we get to enjoy these awesome awesome boards today. Which is why if you can support either Freeboard or Summerboard, you definitely should, because who knows how good road snowboarding can get even from here. So I'm sure a lot of you are wondering how much the Summerboard SBX actually costs. Well look, to cut a long story short, it costs about $2,000, because although they may not advertise this, for most use cases you're going to want to use the hooks. And in order to get these hooks you need to buy the Pro Pack, which is more than the baseline price. I'm not saying that it's not worth $2,000, I just think it's worth knowing up front what it is that you actually need to buy. For a very small subset of people, riding hookless would be fine, but I think for the vast majority you are going to want the hooks. And that riding hookless is a fairly niche skill involved with riding a freeboard or Summerboard. Another question that might be on your mind is whether Summerboard actually teaches you to snowboard. The simple answer is yes. I tried this where I learnt to freeboard for a year to find out if it really helps to teach you to snowboard without ever hitting the slopes. I'll leave a link to the video in the description, but the short answer is yes, and for sure the same would apply if you'd learnt to Summerboard for a year. The fact is, this 4 edge wheel and 2 spinning center wheel design is just so close to snowboarding that it's just kind of mind-blowing. And for anyone who's looking to take up snowboarding or already does snowboard, it's a bit of a cheat code. Adrian from the pro team has definitely put this the best. It's a cheat code in the sense that you never stop practicing throughout the year. You can also do it in shorts and a t-shirt, which is a lot less equipment than you use snowboarding, and that's not to mention how much cheaper it is to go freeboarding or summerboarding compared to a whole trip snowboarding. So in that sense, it's a triple cheat code. And so with all of these cheats, you might start to think that you're in GTA, or maybe even in Sonic Riders. As for who the Summerboard is best suited for, I would definitely say someone who lives in a flat country, because when it comes to straight comparison with snowboarding, I would say that the Freeboard 5X is closer than the Summerboard. But if you don't have hills, it's kind of pointless, so the Summerboard is definitely the better option. Also, with the Summerboard, you won't have to walk back up the hill, which is probably quite a big factor to a lot of people. I've had some issues with the Summerboard, although supposedly these are fixed with boards that you would buy now, and so if you're interested in picking one up, definitely check them out over on their website. Otherwise, thank you very much to Freeboard for supporting the channel with an affiliate link, and so if you want to pick up a 5X and do so through this link, you would be supporting the channel a lot. It really is quite something to compare the early generations of Freeboard or Summerboard to the most recent ones, whether that's the Freeboard Alpha to the Freeboard 5X, or the earliest generation Leaf Tech boards with the Summerboard SBX. Both companies have really provided continuous improvements in their designs, and this is why I'm so excited to see what they can do in the future. Who knows, perhaps the designs will be so good that you can even start to do something similar to carving on a snowboard. So definitely support them if you can, otherwise secondhand boards are always a great option if you can't afford brand new ones. If you enjoy this new format of video, then definitely let me know. I have a few ideas of interesting variations of it, for example surf skates and the various designs that have been funded through Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And who knows, maybe we could find out whether it ever teaches you to surf without ever hitting the sea. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a good one.